Check, check. What's going on, guys? All right. Today is Monday, August 28th. And I'm excited. We got a special guest today, Josh Driskell from Lagerlof will be joining us. Stay tuned.
I got the world on my mind.
Yeah. Sean and Corey, carry the show.
Running out of time.
Yes.
Sooner or later they'll see why I see why I got the realest flow. Son of the dark, but I still got the illest flow. And it's ironic to me how a chronic MC can strike me before we drop the chronic CD. You see, it all started in the CPT. When Nina rolled a shotgun, so the fleet C3. Keep the pound in the middle like DPG. Now they love me in the late like CP3. I'm ballin', shout out to Uncle Warren. And all the pretty girls will see it out while I'm touring. Signing autographs, otherwise I'll ignore them. Voila, I got this rider chick that I'm adoring. Yo.
Center stages and spotlights. Oh, baby. People craze with them fantasy pop life. Social frenzies. Who's your next bestie, baby? False realities and drugstore remedies. I got the world on my mind. And maybe never comes. We're out of time, babe. I got the world on my mind. And maybe never comes. We're out of time, babe.
Hey there, Corey, looking good. Huh?
Hey, I have a little pre-roll running. I'm going to get you in a second.
Perfect. Sorry for the delay. Just got off this tiny call.
From Tokyo to LA, stop your evil ways. Show this place your love. Make it brighter days. Save the life and save the dream. I can't believe it now. You have to flip the page and you can really see it now. I got the world on my mind. Yes, it's on my mind. Running out of time. Out of time.
Young.
I got the world. I got the world.
Check, check, check.
Yeah, yeah. I got the world, baby.
Sean and
I
Corey.
got the world, baby. I got the world, baby. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whew. All right. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, August 28th. I have a special guest here today, Josh Driskell. Can you hear me, Josh?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and put you through. We're going to go live here in a sec. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure, man. It's an honor to have you. So Josh, do you go by Josh or Joshua?
Oh yeah, Josh is good.
All right, cool, man. So we're excited to have you. You know, I know you're an estate lawyer, correct? And
Yeah.
we got a lot of, you know, there's always agents. You know, it's probate, all that stuff is, you know, sometimes it's just, you know, it's just a topic that you know, I think agents can use a lot more, you know, information on. So having you on here today is it's an awesome. You know, I was going through your you know, your website and everything, and I see that you specialize in estate planning, probate. I know, trusts, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I know that you're you know, you're involved with the community. Congratulations on all your accolades, man. It's awesome.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on. I know you're out there doing some public speaking, and so that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Corey. I'm happy to be on. It's always a pleasure working with you and your team and helping the clients and agents that you
Yes,
send
sir.
our way. So as you mentioned, I'm a trust and estates attorney, manage our firm called Lagerlof. We're located in Pasadena, Southern California. We have offices in Seattle, Washington, Oregon, several around the California area, and deal with a lot of real estate and trust issues. So tons of real estate transactions, real estate litigation. So we've had occasion to get involved a number of times in matters that you've come across that either have a litigation component to them or maybe a litigation component. And then, of course, the trust and estate component. Typically, if you're involved, somebody's trying to sell something after someone dies. So do a ton of work in that area. And if the agents out there are doing any amount of work in this space, they're going to see that it's not uncommon for somebody to try to sell a piece of property that is still in the deceased person's name, or something happened many years ago and not the proper protocol wasn't followed, and now it's a challenge towards selling the property. So we get involved a lot there,
Right.
and probably do about 300 probates a year as a firm. So it's quite a few, and it's a good number. And so chances are we're gonna, if you've got that situation, we've seen it.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So let me ask you this: when it comes to probate, how does it all get started? So, obviously, if they don't have a trust, someone passes away. There's no will. There's no trust.
Yep.
Who begins? Where does this start? How?
Yeah, it's a common question, and it's kind of a question that a lot of people either have or don't know the answer to, or think something different. So I can count a number of times where people thought that the state sort of took care of probate and started the process, right? And that's really not true. Somebody has to kick off the probate process in almost every instance. So if something happens to someone and they pass away and they own real property, somebody has to take an affirmative step towards either probating that asset and getting it distributed to the heirs, or selling that asset and distributing the cash, or if it's in a trust, administering the trust.
Right.
Now, most of the time, I'd say the vast majority of the time, so the person who's doing that knows that they're doing it, right? There's a person involved. Maybe it's a child, a spouse, a family member. They know that their loved one has passed away and that steps need to be taken to, clear up their assets, right? And distribute them or whatever the trust or will says.
Right.
But there are many instances where somebody didn't have a will, or somebody didn't have a trust, or there was really no family members involved. And it can be many years before somebody really takes the steps to try to clear that title up, right? And to sell the property. So, but it always starts with somebody. Somebody living has to take the steps and, start the probate process, which, if it's truly a probate, means filing a petition with the court and actually asking the court to determine whether or not the person had a will, if they did, whether or not that will is valid or not, and then to finalize and bless whoever it is that is going to receive those assets from the trust or the will.
Right. And now, what's the difference between a will and a trust? I mean, I know wills are not recorded. There's no recording of that, right? And
typically not. You can, as a person, lodge your will while you're alive with the court. Most people do not do that, but you can.
Okay.
And you can do the same with a trust, but most people do not do that. And in title, most of the trusts are not recorded.
Yeah.
The vast majority are not recorded.
Yeah.
So you basically have to find that document, figure out what it says, and then purport to act under it, right? So if somebody doesn't have one of those things, then you're really looking at what does the state law say about who's going to get their assets, right? So if you're, an individual that's not married and has no kids, it's probably going to your parents if you're still alive, or it's going to your siblings. And there's a whole table under the probate code of where everything goes.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll go to the state if there's nobody alive that are your relatives.
Right, right. I saw you're licensed in Ohio also.
Yeah,
Right.
licensed in Ohio and Washington and
And,
California.
and do those
Yeah.
obviously there's different laws in each
Yeah.
state, so that they're a little bit different, right? How?
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
Ohio's a non-community property state. Washington and California are community properties, so
Right.
they're a little more similar.
Yeah.
Community property is the concept that a married couple they acquire, even if the property is in one person's name, they acquire assets kind of together. Is the idea. So unless something is considered a separate property asset, and you're particularly setting that out from the offset, it's going to be treated as community property, generally speaking. And there are some options for surviving spouses. If one of their if their spouse passes away, maybe there wasn't a will, or maybe it was even just in the surviving, or it was just in the deceased spouse's name.
Yeah.
There are things we can do to try to either get it transferred over to the surviving spouse, or get them an option or a claim to stay in the property for their lifetime, things like that.
Very interesting. Interesting stuff. So a property could actually just sit there for
Yeah.
years.
It does.
At what point? So like
Absolutely.
usually, yeah. So it could just sit there, and at what point does the state ever get involved in that, or if there's
Only if the taxes aren't getting
errors?
But if the taxes are somehow getting paid,
Right.
and there's really no issue. Like, for example, I got involved in a property recently that really got brought to light because this property is located in Pasadena. The city of Pasadena started to take steps to take this property due to blight.
Wow.
So property is near the hospital, and there were probably situations where there were either homeless people hanging around it, or there was drugs going on, or there was something happening at the property.
Yeah.
And the city of Pasadena said, okay, look, we're going to take steps to take this property if the owner doesn't step forward and do something. Now, the only way our person, who eventually we found had an interest in the property, although a very small interest, like a 1/32% interest in this property, which for a title rep is a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
But, or anybody is a nightmare. To be
Right.
honest. They only noticed that and said, wait, that's grandma's old house, or that's Uncle Jimmy's old house, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on? So they took a picture of the notice, contacted us. We were ultimately able to find out that the person, this was still in my great grandpa's name. And
Wow.
there had been people from the family living in the property throughout that entire period. The individual had been gone for almost 35 years.
Wow.
And nothing really had it triggered an ownership change there. They were obviously paying the property taxes, but in this case, I think the property taxes were getting behind, but they were keeping up. So I think they just paid them.
Yeah.
And the property, it just, because it fell into such disrepair, though, that's how it kind of got on the radar of some people.
Right,
but if
right.
they had been keeping the property up and just paying the property taxes,
nothing will happen.
chances are nobody would even know about it. It's not until they go to sell it
Right.
that it all comes to light. And then the assessor gets involved and says, well, wait a minute, there's way old back taxes that are owed here. There's this, there's that. And then, everybody comes out with their hands out going, okay, well, where's my piece of the pie since grandpa's been gone, all these years, kind of thing.
Right. So somebody would have to take over and, bring those taxes current, right? If, in order to stop that process.
Exactly. It's going to be a seller, right? So the seller, when they go to sell, the assessor is going to give the title company escrow, hey, here's the current taxes due. And if they don't know it at that point, then there's going to be an escape tax assessment being issued on that property. Now, in California, they can only go back 10 years.
Yeah.
So even if grandpa had been gone 35 years, the state or county, in this case, misses out on that 25 years worth of taxes, but they can go back 10.
Right. Very interesting. So as a young couple starting out, they haven't acquired any property. Would it be advisable to start the trust at that point? They just got married. They don't quite have any real property. Is that you would recommend starting it?
Yeah, you really look at situation by situation. So there's people that have a high net worth that we still use wills for.
Okay.
And, typically, well, I'd say that's the exception, not the rule. And that's going to be if their assets are primarily distributable via, contract. So think about somebody who has money in like a 401k or an IRA or, assets like that.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need a trust because those assets can flow outside of probate and go directly. So if I die and I leave a life insurance policy to Corey, we don't need to probate that, right? Corey can just call the life insurance company, provide my death certificate, and get his check, right? And we never hear from Corey again.
That would be nice.
He got paid out.
Yeah, man.
But
Right.
if it's a piece of property, right, then there's a process for that. That's probate. That's a much more involved situation.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily dollars based. It's asset based.
Right.
Because I've told clients,
Interesting.
look, you could have $50 million and avoid probate, or you could have 150,000 and be in probate.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all depending on what the asset load is. Now in California, it's 166,000 is the amount of assets that can go outside, can transfer to someone without initiating probate.
166,000.
Or unless it's one of those direct transactions like I just talked about.
Oh,
For real property, it's 66,000. So their interest in real property has to be less than $66,000 to avoid the probate process. That's almost no.
Yeah,
it could be a 1/32nd interest in a property, maybe.
Right.
Something like that. But if they are a fee simple owner of a piece of property, there's very little chance that it's less than $66,000 unless it's a vacant lot somewhere, something like that.
Interesting.
So it really depends on the property type.
Yeah.
And I usually tell young couples like that, go ahead and get the trust because it's an inexpensive thing to set up right now. The part that typically what makes trust cost money is when you start to add complexity and you start to add a lot of assets to them that require transfers. So if you've just got a really simple situation, it's not that much more expensive than a basic will, and it does a lot more for you. So a simple married couple with a couple kids, even without property, I probably would tell them to go ahead and do it, although they could avoid it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe more important to have the nominations of guardians and some of those other types of documents so that they're able to, if something happens to them or their kids or whatnot, they've got the documents in place to deal with it.
Right. And so is there any instance where a will, just having a will, would avoid a probate case? Or is that...
No. So wills have to be probated no matter what.
Okay.
So the only time that you would avoid probate if you had a will only is if your assets that were subject to that will were listed in those numbers I just gave you. So 166,000.
Right.
If you've got only an account worth $100,000, you could use the will without probate and get the assets from the bank or whatnot. There's a little bit more to it than that, but by and large that's the process.
Right.
Once things exceed that $166,000 mark, then you have to probate it, unfortunately, which is expensive and time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Particularly if it's just a small account that is barely over the limit.
Yeah.
It's going to be incredibly frustrating to probate that asset because whether the probate is $50 million or $180,000, the process is identical to probate those assets. Notice to the creditors, publication in the newspaper, statutory waiting period for creditors to file claims, boom, boom, boom. So, if you can avoid that process, it's a best practice to try to do that no matter what.
No.
The only time we take clients voluntarily through probate is if we're trying to shed some liabilities and we want creditors to be forced to file claims and kind of get rid of them that way. But that's pretty uncommon too.
Right. And what's like the typical lifespan of, a probate case?
18 to 24 months.
Oh, wow.
Is about the process
Yeah.
timeline.
Yeah. Because we see deals, that come through and, or they'll want a prelim or something. And, then we find out, oh no, this is going to be a probate case. And it's just like, oh man,
Right.
but,
and you guys have sent over lots of situations like that.
Yeah.
And we can typically get somebody in a position to sell a piece of property connected to a probate in 30 to 45 days, maybe 60 at the longest.
Okay.
And sometimes we can do it much shorter than that if the circumstances allow for that.
Yeah.
But that's just a piece of the puzzle, right? So now we've sold something.
Right.
There's cash that's held in a bank account that's subject to the remaining period of time.
Oh,
So,
okay.
it's not like you have to wait 18 months to sell the
It's just
property. I
like-
can do that a lot faster than
Okay.
that, but you have to wait 18 months to get the money from the sale.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's not a good scenario. That's not where you want to be.
So
You're
how about
beneficiary.
like as you know, does anything get paid out during the other than the the proceeds to the seller? Does
Expenses of administration, basically. So just
Okay.
costs and expenses. They could pay the electric bill on the property. They can pay the taxes. They can
Okay.
pay certain things without court order.
right
But you
right
can't make any distributions to beneficiaries. You can't pay your attorney. You can't pay yourself or
Really?
serving as trustee or executor in this case.
okay.
So
What about like brokers'
you could sell the
fees?
property and pay the title company, but that would be about it.
Okay. Well, as long as we get paid.
Exactly. As long as title and as long as the agents' commissions are paid out and title companies paid, then
Yeah.
everybody's good.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's what everybody wants to know. The agents out
Yeah,
there.
no, definitely.
No.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So
So
I
you
can
did-
count.
so definitely
I've
take-
probably done 50.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I've done 50 transactions where somebody's called me and said, "Hey, we're in escrow, and we just found out that Grandpa's still got a 50% interest in this house.
Uh huh.
What do we do?"
Wow.
And chances are I can get you to close on time if
Yeah.
everybody moves quickly after I'm brought in, and we open probate and we file an ex parte petition to have the court allow for a special administrator to close this transaction
Right.
on behalf of the 50% owner, in this case Grandpa.
Yeah.
Now that's fine, and Grandpa will close on time, or we'll close right around closing time. But that 50%, the proceeds for that are going to be in a blocked account until such time as the court says, "All right, you can distribute the money out," even
Right.
if it's to the same person that's selling the other 50%. Right?
Yeah.
It's got to go through the process.
Oh, I got a couple questions here from some viewers here. Let's take a look. So, question: there's a property that's been vacant for over 7 years. The heirs have not claimed the property, and the neighbors parking their car there. Can they claim the property?
No, not
So that's-
directly.
yeah.
So there are, every state has a law around what's referred to generally as adverse possession. And adverse possession is a process legally where you can obtain effectively title to a property by owning it, sort of, or acting like you're owning it.
Right.
California, it's a little challenging to get title by adverse possession. It's not impossible, but
Mhm.
you have to be taking, in California, you have to be basically doing it in a conspicuous way. You have to be out in the open that you're doing this.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more challenging. If the client or whomever it is, his goal is to get the property by adverse possession, they should talk to an attorney to try to deal with it.
Uh-huh.
Alternative, and put themselves in the best position to do that. Alternatively, if no one's claiming the property, that I've seen many times where an agent's gotten involved and helped reach. We can provide services to try to find the heirs. Say, look, you've got this piece of property that you have probably an interest in. Do you want to get paid something for it? Because if so,
Yeah.
I've got a buyer and I can connect you to an attorney to probate the estate. And if we probate the estate, then you would be able to, get whatever your share of that property is.
Wow.
And most people would say, yeah, I think so, right? All things considered, unless there's some other grand plan involved. But if you got situations like that, I'm happy to talk to anybody about that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that was from Dalia Godinez. She's an escrow officer. And,
Got it. Yeah, reach out, Dalia. It's
There's
totally
a
happy
lot.
to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can any, if we have agents out there that want to, have questions or a similar case like this, how can they reach you? Is that just your
email's always
website?
good. You can always call my office, but email is always good. I'm looking at that all the time, probably
Okay.
like everybody on here, and
Yeah.
helping. I can put it in the chat if it carries through Courier, or you can put
Yeah.
my email in.
Okay.
And everybody can reach out that way.
Yeah.
Tend to be really responsive where I can, particularly if there's a transaction like this that somebody just needs a quick help on. I'm happy to see how we can guide. And if it's not something I can help with, that's okay. I'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But usually it's something we can do.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. And I was going to ask you too. I know you're doing some stuff I know you're doing like a lot of public speaking. Are you just out there just kind of bringing awareness to,
Yeah, so I
Or you're-
speak on a lot of different topics, typically
Yeah.
around estate and trust work, but I've also spoken at many realtor offices,
Yeah.
escrow offices, title companies. We can provide CLE where needed, but usually it's around just best practices on transactions, or if there are sticky situations where you're really just trying to figure out, okay, how do we break this loose? What do we
Yeah.
do to get this, transaction closed? That kind of thing. Happy to jump in and help if somebody's got a situation out there.
Yeah, and I know you've helped thousands of people out there, and you got a great reputation,
Probably
by
at
the
this
way,
point,
man.
it seems like it.
Every agent, knows who you are out there, in Pasadena. So you're like a rock star, man. So I really appreciate you
thanks.
coming on. What do you do for fun, man? You golf? What?
I golf a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, our firm has if there's golfers out there and you're in the Pasadena area, our firm has our annual golf tournament that goes
Okay.
towards our charitable foundation. That's happening in November. So I golf usually terribly, but I definitely
Oh,
golf
that's like
a
me,
little
man.
bit.
Yeah.
I also love just doing my own transactions. I do
Yeah.
a lot of fix and flip, and I do
Oh,
a lot
that-
of buy and holds on my own stuff.
Oh,
And,
do you? Oh, cool, man.
It's my creative out. That's how I get some, my artistic
Are you
side
into
out.
Are you into the whole fixing decor and like me?
Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoy all right, how do we reimagine this property? What are we going to do? And what's the vibe
Oh, that's
gonna
fun, man.
be?
It's creative.
It's always really, really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I think the last time I ran into you, we were having drinks somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
in
I
fact,
just got in
I
from
remember.
Vegas. Liz and I just got in from Vegas this morning. Just flew in, man.
Oh wow, you guys are just party animals.
I know. We had our 27th anniversary last week, so we decided to take off to Vegas. Then
Nice.
we just literally were there
That's
like
great.
it was like just 24 hours, man. And we had to get up this morning, got to the airport, and the flight was a little bit delayed. There was like there was a problem with their hydraulics or something. So it was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to get on that plane, man. Yeah.
I don't want to necessarily fly on a broken plane.
So but we ended up just jumping on getting over here. So I'm glad to have you on, man. And let's see if there's any more questions here. She said you're hired. So she'll be contacting you.
Yeah, reach out anytime. Seriously, I love helping agents get transactions closed.
Yeah.
Escrow and title, same, right? It's everybody's got the same goal of getting the transaction closed and avoiding risk and all that stuff. It's always really, really fun.
Right.
And there's usually a way to do it. Very rarely am I going to say, I don't really think I see a path here. There's always a path. It's either path with time, it's not path with money. Hopefully it takes a little amount of both instead of a lot of either one.
Right.
But I'm always happy to be a resource.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, Josh. Thank you so much for coming on today. And we'll be. This is a kind of a new podcast. I'm jumping on here, weekly, and sharing information out there to the real estate community, lenders, escrow, real estate agents. So I know they appreciate you, jumping on with us today. And hopefully, as we move on, you'll come back if you have something to share. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Josh, thank you so much. You have a great week. And if you need anything from us, you know how to get a hold of us.
I know how to get a hold of you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Josh.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, have a good one. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So that was Joshua Driskell of Lagerlof. And he was awesome, man. That was really cool. I'm glad we got, he came on and shared some stuff with us today. A lot of stuff that, I wasn't really aware of, every time I hear probate, I'm just like, oh, that's kind of a deal killer. But it's not, and you heard Josh, it can get done. He can set it up, put you in a position to sell that property within, a few months. And then obviously the probate case, the life of the probate goes on for 18 to 24 months. So very interesting stuff. Thank you for joining us today. And if you guys need anything, don't forget to reach out. 626-392-7993. Email me, open@CoreyTitleRep.com. And yeah, so that's going to be it for today. I hope that you guys have a great week. And if there's anything that you need, you'll hit me up. I'll keep you posted for next week's podcast. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a guest because it is going to be Labor Day weekend. So, or Labor Day, we're going to be observing Monday as the holiday. But so I'll let you know. We might go black next week. But I have some great guests coming up. It's not just real estate, title business, but I have some athletes coming on in the future, some musicians. So stay tuned. Everybody needs a house, right? You buy a house, you need title insurance. So it'll always be title talk. Anyways, you guys stay blessed. You guys have a great week. Protect your energy. And I will see you guys next week, Monday, 11 a.m. YouTube Live, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now on iHeartRadio. Have a great one, guys.